This is Jen Biederman, and today I'm showing you a card that I made using the new stamp set Winter Wonderland from Mama Elephant. And I'm also using their new inks, Creative Color. There's 3 different ones I'm using. I just stamped that deer with smoke. And then there's Hazel and Winter. They're all a light blue, a brown, and a gray color combo that I'm using today. And I just stamped the sentiment from the Winter Wonderland set that's Sparkle and Shine. And I'm also cutting it out to make it into an interactive element. What it's going to do is I'm creating that T shape on the end, and it'll be a slider. It'll actually slide out and reveal the sentiment from behind the top piece. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside here once I've trimmed it up just a little bit more. There we go. And next, I have a couple pieces of cardstock. They're 4 by 5 1/4, so that I can have an outer edge frame on the base of the card behind it. And I'm using that sentiment as a guide so that I know where to stamp my first tree for the top piece. Excuse me. And I'm also stamping the trees in gray, the smoke, and the hazel is next. These inks work really well with Mama Elephant stamps. And they have many colors. You need to go check it out in their store. And there's the winter tree. Then I'm going to stamp on the right hand side. And next I'm going to go ahead and trim this piece around that one tree. This is going to be that front piece that the deer will slide out from behind. Set that aside and continue with the rest of my background, creating a woodland scene with a couple more trees. And then you'll also notice that they're not completely straight. I angle them up a little bit. I like them to have a little bit of a varied look. And there's my little deer. And right on the edge so that the deer is standing right next to the mama deer. And now I'm going to stamp the buck, and I'm using a masking technique so that I can have that deer looking like he's peeking from behind that tree. And I'll go ahead, and it was a little tricky to stamp the rest of his body behind on the other side, so you might want to just use the full tree image, stamp it onto the post-it note, cut it out, and place it over the tree that you've already stamped, and then to block out that tree, and then go ahead and stamp the entire image of the buck or the deer right there on the edge. And he goes off to the edge of the paper. I don't necessarily have to have the whole deer image in the scene. And now I am going to go ahead and place my sentiment in behind that front piece. And I usually just eyeball things, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and see where that T-shaped stopper needs to stop on the card there. And then I'm going to use foam tape and go in with that foam tape and create a path for that sentiment to slide out through. So I'm going to use a couple little tiny pieces of foam tape right in the corner of that T shape there, and also there. Might have to do a little adjusting. Small pieces of foam tape work pretty good for that. I did set that sentiment kind of low on the card, so I did have to cut the foam tape a little bit smaller. And then Now I'm just creating that path I was telling you about earlier. You want to make sure you have a path or a channel for that sentiment to slide out and not get caught up on. A long piece of foam tape would, actually work better than using small pieces of foam tape. This is just what I happen to have in my stash, so that's what I'm using. And I just keep checking as I go along. I just slide it out so I can make sure I'm putting them in the right spot. That way the sentiment will not get caught up on those pieces of foam tape. And then I'm just adding in the foam tape to the rest of the top piece. And now I've got the backing off of all the pieces of foam tape, and I'm adhering it to the back. My slider works well. It goes up and down a little bit, but works pretty well. And this is where I'm going to go in and lightly stamp a few of those snowflakes in from that Winter Wonderland set. And I just did that in my black ink that I have on hand. And I'm going to adhere that to the base of the card. Double checking to make sure that slider still works well. I do like using this Wink of Stella clear glitter brush that I got it not too long ago. It gives them a little bit of a shine, but I didn't think that was enough, so then I decided to go in and add my Perfect Pearl Mists. Heirloom Gold is the color, and so that's my little spray box I use. You can see it's got lots of color. I use it a lot. And sprayed a little bit onto the card to add some shimmer. Using my heat gun to dry that off a little bit. You can air dry it, of course, but I really like using my heat gun. So that's set. And of course, I wanted to add a few of these little stitch marks, faux stitch marks on there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the card around the entire edge. This can all be done prior to adding the foam tape if you'd prefer, but I just went ahead and did it after because I thought it just needed that extra little touch. There we go. That looks pretty good, but I still want to add in my wood veneer stars just to give it a little bit of dimension, texture. And I ended up noticing that I hadn't sprayed behind the deer, so I just did that real quick. And I got a little bit more than I would have liked, but it still looks good. And again, perfection's overrated. I don't really want it to be completely perfect. And there you go. Slider comes out. Perfect little woodland scene. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial today. Thank you, and catch you later.